the FCI A2O Rapid Fire interviews, where I have a chat with well-known personalities in our dog world from our section and beyond for us to get to know them better. How Rapid Fire works is I ask a series of short questions to our invited guests in the hope that they tell us a bit more about themselves and we get to know them better through the course of the interview. All our episodes of our show are available on our A2O or the FCI Asia, Africa and Oceania section Facebook page as they are launched for you to watch at your own time. And previous episodes are all there for you to catch up on as well. So feel free to go on in there and check it out. Like us to get notified every time we go live. The idea for this show came about during the COVID-19 pandemic, which saw many of us isolated at home. So these Zoom interviews came about as a way to have fun, get to know each other better, and importantly, to be connected with one another. Today, I have the pleasure and honor of having a chat with Pam Bruce, all the way from Canada. How are you, Pam?
Good. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. Or I should say Pam Trixie Bruce. For those of you who are wondering, who's Pam Bruce on Facebook? You only know Trixie Breen.
You blown my cover.
Okay. Guilty as charged. And I must say, you have the honor of being actually the first North American that I'm interviewing. So there you go. And the first Canadian.
I was still stuck back on the fact of well-known dog people. I'm like, and then there's me.
No. Well, you are well known. I was just about to say, you're judging at Westminster next year. You're doing breeds at Westminster.
Yes.
So that's exciting.
Yes, my second time back. I'm really looking forward to it.
Wow. That's so cool.
That's actually the first time that I saw you. We nodded and waved hello when you were standing outside the ring when I was judging the first time.
You know, you said that, but I think maybe I didn't register because I'm thinking Trixie. No. I'm thinking Trixie Breen, and I'm looking at the ring name is Pam Bruce, because I would have come and said hello. You know, I'm not that rude. I wouldn't have just nodded and walked off. I would have.
He's like, who's this crazy woman waving at me?
I'm really bad. I'm not going to admit that I'm bad with names because sometimes people say hi and I don't know who they are. But there you go.
Right.
I won't admit it. Okay, let's get started. Otherwise, we'll keep yapping on, the two of us. So let's move. Okay, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Colombia.
Wow. Okay. Any particular city in Colombia?
Bogota.
Nice. I like
it's my favorite place, the people, my family. I love Australia as well as a second, but I actually have real family in Australia. But Bogota, just like the dog show community, Bogota has truly become the family that you choose for yourself. I think the country's incredible. The people are incredible. I just absolutely, every time I get off the plane there, I feel like I'm at home and I have no idea why.
Wow. ¿Hablas español?
A little bit, and I'm getting better. Everyone makes fun of me because I tried to learn from Rosetta Stone, but as Ernesto Lara said to me, I won't get far with the boy swimming in the pool and the girl holding an apple. So I'm now going to try to do different apps during this pandemic to learn a bit more conversational Spanish. The funny thing is now, from listening to it for so long, I understand it way more than what I can repeat it back. Yeah. So I get a lot more than what people believe I do.
Just watch lots of telenovelas and you'll be fine. You'll pick it up really quickly. And you know, just don't pick up the accents though. Sometimes they're a bit.
No.
All right. What's your favorite alcoholic drink?
An Argentinian Malbec or Chardonnay.
Nice. Favorite book?
Wow, there's so many. Dick Mean was a ferocious reader, and I borrowed books from him my entire life. I think I would probably have to say overall, anything by Margaret Atwood, the Canadian author. Yeah.
And favorite movie?
Wow. I guess, wow, that would be, there's so many. I love like the Star Wars series, but I'm not really into sci-fi. But I think if I had to watch something time and time again, which I always did with my grandmother, and I'm going to date myself, but Pretty Woman.
Oh, that's one of my favorites as well.
Is it? Yeah.
Oh,
My
absolutely.
Nana and I watched it so many times.
But I was a bit in love with Julia Roberts, so it was more about her than.
And I was in love with Richard Gere, so we're even, right?
Excellent. All right. What's the strangest thing you've ever eaten?
Oi. On some of the Asian countries, I have no idea what I've eaten, and they've tried to trick me. Andrew Burt tricked me when we were in Seoul, South Korea, and I'm still not sure what I ate. But I'm not good with those things. I'm very adventurous, but I'm not good when it comes to anything gamey, and anything like those ducks that are inside the eggs, like that are still, there's no way.
No. Oh, stop. I'm really feeling ill. This balut, it's called balut, Filipino. It's horrible.
Yes, there's no way.
Okay.
But I love seafood and anything like that. I'm pretty adventurous with all of that, like eel and squid. Anything that I'm fine with that, but yeah.
Okay, cool. And what's the first thing? I mean, I know with your career as in the police and all that, but what's the first thing you notice about someone when you meet them?
Their eyes.
Okay.
And I'm very extremely bad too, because as I talk to them, if what's coming out of their mouth, I was an investigator, so if what's coming out of their mouth doesn't match their eyes, I'm done. It's really funny. And I never, ever lose that instinct. It drives me crazy. I try to override it, but it never works.
Well, it's instinct. It's hard to override instinct. It comes naturally.
Right.
Okay, who's your favorite cartoon character and why?
Tigger.
Okay.
Because as he used to say, bouncing what Tiggers do best, but he was always in a good mood and he always found the positive side. Wow. So I loved Tigger growing up. I had Tigger dolls and everything, or toys, but it's just so funny because even now when I see any of the Tigger cartoons or anything, that I still get a laugh out of it because I just think his attitude's amazing.
Absolutely. And tell me, talking a little bit about dogs, you're a third, fourth generation dog person. Is that correct?
Technically fourth. So my great-grandmother, and this is interesting because as we've talked about, you and I before, my great-grandmother had collies and finished a few, but they were still our family, like the family pet. So they never really bred a lot. They would breed to have a dog as a companion, and then people that they knew would have the other dogs. My grandfather came from Wales. He had 2 Welsh Terriers and 2 Boston Terriers when he came, but he didn't really continue once he met my grandmother and had a family. Like, they finished dogs, but that was it. And then my mom, it's interesting because my dad's mom, that was my mom's parents, but my dad's mom had American Cockers, and she's the one that she's like my everything. And she's the one that taught me the work ethic about dog shows. And my parents were very successful. When we were young, they had Maltese. And so I finished my first Maltese with the help of Billy Milne and a few other people, and admittedly showing to my grandmothers when I was 4. And then we showed a lot of Lhasas after that. My mom was very successful with the Lhasa Apsos.
Okay. And where did you get involved with Afghans and with your current breed?
So we showed so long ago that, believe it or not, Lhasa Apsos were in the terrier group. So the only dog that I ever begged for ever was an Airedale. I wanted an Airedale since I was 6 years old. And I would go and stand at ringside. And back then, as you can imagine, those dogs were crisp. They meant business. And I would love getting in the mix of it. And the big old-time men that were just like very similar, not dissimilar to the big, huge police officers I met when I first joined the job. It seemed like every man that owned an Airedale was built like that, like a fridge with a head. And I would get so excited because they would let me walk puppies in, or they'd let me walk a bitch in for best of winners or whatever. And I would stand at ringside every day during Airedales till somebody let me show something or hold something, and I was not allowed to have them early on because of the work, on their coat work. and I was really heavily into athletics and that. So I ended up, the only other breed I really wanted was an Afghan hound. And I got my first Afghan when I was 11. And interestingly enough, he had 2 white front feet and a miss mark right up his face. And I finished him on my own in Canada with groups. And I finished him in the States. That's how I met Michael Canaliso and Dennis Sprung. I finished him in the States on my own. And then I ended up meeting Granger, Michael, and Dennis Sprung encouraged Roger Reckler to speak to me in regards to showing dogs, because Roger had only ever had Michael handle. So it was a really interesting transition. I would prepare all Michael's specials, the ones that were waiting in the wings. We, between us as a team, would pick out which dog was next. I would bring it to Canada, show it. It would have a year, probably a year of a career, but I would bomb-proof it and then bring it back to him ready to go. And then we would switch up, and we did that for close to 40 years.
Nice. And
Right.
do you feel having that background with, you know, all your right up until your great grandparents put you in good stead, or did you have to unlearn some things as you went along in life about dogs?
It's funny because my mother and I, to this day, if you put us in a room, we're as opposite as chalk and cheese. We have a very different work ethic. We have a very different mentality about dog shows. And I think that's a very interesting question, because I really had to unlearn a lot. And my grandmother was the complete opposite. My Nana always said to me that if she hadn't have become a mother, and it was interesting too back in those days, because my grandmother was one of the very few women that had a university degree, and she ran a huge pharmaceutical company. So because of her career, she was not able to do what she wanted to. And back then, the dogs weren't campaigned the same way. But I actually have pictures that I put on Facebook now and then. When I started campaigning the Granger dogs, that was her biggest thrill in life. And I don't remember, in the summer circuits, I don't remember one show she wasn't with me. Like, she was with me all the time, and she loved it and loved the dogs. So it's twofold. My mom was very different. The dogs, I actually prepared and conditioned a lot of their dogs growing up, but my grandmother had the drive and the passion, and my mom seemed to have a little bit more, I don't want to say balance, but it was just a different belief in the dogs and their purpose.
Okay, excellent. How interesting. And having been involved that long, what's an issue in today's dog world that concerns you?
I think the number of shows.
Too many or too many? Okay.
Yeah, way too many. I remember making it like, and Michael Canaliso and I have talked about this a lot. You would finish school on a Friday and you'd prepare your dog Friday evening to go to your dog show on Saturday and Sunday. And then, I mean, it truly was evaluating breeding stock, but I mean, we all talk about growing up with, you'd pack your picnic lunch. Or, you know, like I'll never forget going and making sure we had everything in the cooler for lunch and extra water and then everything for the dogs. And then you would come back Sunday evening, unpack the vehicle, make sure the dogs were taken care of, and school was Monday morning. And it was manageable. And I just think now with, you know, the idea of 2 dog shows in a day, it originally started in remote locations, but I mean, Toronto, Ontario is not a remote location. And we have dog shows often where there's 2 dog shows a day. And as you know, literally we used to, not now, but we used to be able to go to a dog show almost every day from the first day in June till Labor Day in September.
Seriously?
Yeah. They used to have circuits and people would travel on them, with the only days off would be like 1 day in between. And those circuits ran that way with people in and out, like people that worked in and out all summer, but handlers, professional handlers would be on the entire circuit.
Do you think, Pam, that's because in those days there were less professional handlers, or were there as many, but just the way things has evolved?
You know, Michael and I have talked about that as well. the good old days, and I'm now old enough to say that. But in the States, there were so many professional handlers when we were down there, but of such quality with huge working kennels that if any of those guys were alive today, they would be the most incredible judges because they had such depth and knowledge, and we all grew up together. And a lot of them were older than me, but I still was part of that, crew or that group. In Canada, I think because it's so much more spread out, we have people obviously from the East Coast to the West Coast, and there are handlers, not as many as in the United States, but they still have a great passion and dedication. And a lot of them are specialists as well. So we may not have as many handlers, but they're very dedicated to the sport.
Okay. And when you started judging, what was the best advice you were given by someone when you became a judge?
Judging, from a judging perspective, definitely John Reeve Newson said to me once, I'll never forget it. He said, honey, he said, consider what you're looking at. They don't get better, they get older. Point already. And it was so true because I'm struggling over these nuances of these two dogs that probably should have stayed at home and, with their owners and baked pies that day. And he could see the internal struggle in my head. I was trying so hard to do the right thing. And I think that's the one thing I really learned from John. And that and his sarcasm growing up. But I truly believe now, and, people say to me, why is it so easy for you? But you must have found that yourself when you were new. You struggled with your decisions.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And now I think it's just so intrinsic. Like I judged, I think it was close to 170 labs in Orlando last year. And at the end, they were all related, like literally as in littermates. And I was floored by it. But what was funny was I learned maybe 10 years ago, out of the 20 some odd years I've been judging now, I learned to just not suffer it. If I just go with the intrinsic qualities of the breed, and Mr. Biven taught me years ago, and I do it religiously every night before I judge. I go through the breed standards and read them yet again. And when I go in the ring, I honestly try my best, but it's so funny because at the end, especially in big shows like that, I'm always so blown away when all the dogs are related and that really shows me not only just like we talked earlier with dogs that imprint in you, but you think of great ones in any breed. For example, in the Dachshund, the Bray House Traveling Man dog, you get dogs that are the blueprint of the breed, and you keep those in your mind's eye. And then the one thing I've learned too with the judging is I don't panic that I've got 65 specials coming up. I break it down into groups of my open class, and then the winners classes sort themselves out. And then once you get into the breed, when there's huge numbers of specials like that, I love it, but it's challenging at the same time because you don't want to lose dogs. But I always make sure I move them once before I excuse them, just so I haven't lost anybody. I'm sure there's times where I've lost dogs, but I try my best to just believe in the process and have the belief in myself that my mind's eye is going to find them.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, you mentioned two gentlemen that I love and adore, Ed Biven and John Reeve Newson. And my mentor in judging, Lynn Lee, the late Lynn Lee, when I first started, she gave me similar advice to you. And she said, when you've got two ordinary dogs in the ring, stop trying to work out which one's better. Point and get them out of your ring. Save the time for the difficult decisions when you need.
That's great.
Because she said, you haven't got all day. You've got to get on with your judging. And she said, so save the time for the important decisions and just.
Yeah, that's a great advice.
Because they're not going to be your winners. Anyway, all right, we can keep yapping. Let's keep going. Favorite pizza topping?
Oh, mushrooms and Canadian bacon.
Oh, what chore do you hate doing?
Oh, floors. And with Airedales running in and out all the time and it just makes me crazy. I'm always with the Swifter in the morning with the cleaner.
Yeah, yeah. If you could be any flavor of ice cream, what flavor would you be and why?
Oh, that's a struggle. Coconut.
Coconut. Why coconut?
And why? Because it's sweet and savory, and it's got a bit of attitude with its crunch. It's good.
You know, someone has said that I'm also a bit of a coconut, brown on the outside, white inside. And the other reason is, and the other one is brown. Reason is tough on the outside, soft inside. So let's move on.
Well, I was going to say that's kind of like me as well. If you don't know me, I have this resting bitch face, and I'm really not like that. People are actually shocked when they find out that I'm not like that, but I'm well aware of what my facial expressions are or are not. What's your favorite ice cream?
I'm not telling you. I'm not being interviewed. This is about you.
That'll be saved for when I'm interviewing you.
All right, let's move on quickly before you get any crazy ideas. With Canada being such a vast country, is the top dog competition more about a campaign strategy, a big budget, a well-known handler, and a decent dog versus a superb dog?
Oh, wow. I've got to be so careful how I answer this.
I know.
Just so that you're aware, full disclosure, and I appreciate it's a short year, but I've waited 25 years to breed an Airedale the quality of the one that I have now. And I had everything in place. She's currently #1 terrier and #6 all breeds. I appreciate it was a very short year. We had 3 months. But I believe twofold. Yes, for the overall top dog awards, you can take a mediocre dog with somebody who's a brilliant handler with huge money behind it, and I guarantee you they will rise to the top. However, there are so many, and it's interesting too, I thought about this not that long ago. There are so many breeder owner handlers in this country that are also, quite interestingly enough, judges that I hugely respect, and there's the rub. Because we're still so passionate about our dogs and involved, but I truly believe a very good breeder owner handler can hold their own and still get through into that top 10. Now, that's the other issue, and Virginia Line and I've talked about this a lot, is I really do agree with her that it should only be the top dog in each breed and be done with it.
Okay. That's okay. And you mentioned something which I wanted to expound on. Do you think there are more handlers in this day and age than actual breeders in Canada? Is the days of we talked about big kennels and breeders who were so passionate about it. Is that a changing fashion in Canada, in your opinion?
I think it's a changing fashion anywhere in the world. I mean, we don't have the Sally Lynn Springers and the Afghans of Grandeur and those big working kennels, the Brayhouse Dachshunds, Kishniga Borzoi. I mean, I worked for Dick and John when I was a kid, and we literally had fields of Borzoi. We don't have that anywhere now. So I think, and this is an interesting talk, and I won't carry on very long on it, but it's just an interesting discussion because, for example, with the Airedales now, we have 5 or 6 people in the States that all have the same bloodline. Okay. And so, yes, it's not a huge working kennel, but there's 5 or 6 people you can rely on that have great dogs and a certain, enough dogs. And I have dogs farmed out everywhere, not only just because of not looking after the coats and that, but I want dogs in pet homes. And from being so ill before, I never wanted to be in the position where if I ended up not well again, that what would I do with my dogs? So I think people have learned now, and I know this is true in several breeds, even Siberians in Canada is another great example. There are really great Siberian breeders, and they work together in tandem. So they kind of equal those big working kennels. And certainly I think, as I said to you, I think they really rival all breed handlers because they walk in with one beautiful dog after another.
Absolutely. Yeah, because you have an interesting mix, I think, of breeder owner handlers who are very committed, plus the professional handlers.
Right.
So,
as opposed to the States, where I think when you go down, you still at the big weekends see the breeders, but for the most part, there's so many handlers.
Yes, agree. Different, completely different paradigm. Sunrise or sunset?
Both. Both.
Describe yourself in 3 words.
Wow. Sarcastic, stubborn, and passionate.
Okay, excellent. God forbid, if your home was on fire, what 2 things would you run back into your house to get?
I wouldn't even have to run back. I'd have both my dogs and go.
Okay.
Nothing else would matter at that point. As long as I had the 2 girls, I'd be good.
Okay, excellent. Any weird dog show superstitions?
Oh, yeah. Every time I have an armband with the number 4 or 8, it's very lucky. Armbands, 2 of them on my wrist. And then at the end of the day, if I win Best in Show, they get wrapped around the armband and put in my tack box. If I don't win Best in Show, but I win the group, for example, they go on the steering column of my car, and I use them the next day. If I have an armband that I don't like, that I didn't do well that day, it's ripped up and I start again the next day. And that's just a start. I have things that would just boggle your mind. I'm very OCD about things. And
okay, tell me. I'm a bit like that.
Are you? What do you do?
No, I'm interviewing you. Behave yourself.
Okay, next time we'll get into that.
So tell me something else OCD that you do when you're showing the dogs.
I was actually laughing just recently. Emily Burden, a young she's a girl that's an incredible handler in Canada, and I've known her family since she was born. And I don't think I've ever laughed this hard, because she had brought it up recently, and Will Alexander, a friend that I've known since we were kids, he had interviewed Bill McFadden. And and this blew my mind, everybody talks about going into the first stall in the washroom, and that's where on the weekend, and they have to have that stall. They will wait for whatever stall. And it's hilarious because these people do this OCD stuff, and it's just too funny. Like, I'll load the dogs in the car in the morning and I'll double check they're there, but I always come back to look at the door that it's shut. The things that we all do, and when you hear people interviewed during this pandemic, and it's fascinating to me.
Absolutely. I'm sorry we lost you there a little bit, but yeah, it is incredible the quirks that we all seem to have. We're not that odd after all. With the knowledge and experience you have in the dog world, if you could go back in time, what would you do differently?
That's an interesting question. I really struggled with the fact that I stopped handling. I was a specialist with the grandeur dogs, but it was a real internal struggle when I went into the police service, because my grandmother had instilled in me that I needed a pension and I needed a university degree and I needed something to fall back on. Wow. I'll never forget when I did my last dog show, because it was actually Ann Rogers Clark and Jane Forsyth who almost tried to discourage me not to quit. And it's interesting because as much as I'm so grateful for the career I've had and my pension and how successful I was in my career, and how driven I was, my passion for the dogs, I second guess it all the time, which is crazy, but I still think my true passion would have been showing.
Okay. So you would have, and so doing things again, if you could choose a career again, you would have become a professional handler?
I think I would have stayed doing that. Roger Reckler with with the Grandeur dogs, had actually spoken to me and offered me basically that position and to assist Michael and still be able to travel with the idea. He toyed with the idea because he had the means to show 2 different dogs on different coasts or have 1 dog traveling. Yeah. And we talked about it at some point. And he also said, or stay in Canada and just do this. But my grandmother instilled such fear in me about, and you know what's interesting, and I think about this as well, is she instilled such fear in me, but you know, isn't it interesting right now? Because if I would have been a professional handler at this time with nothing to fall back on, what would have happened? Absolutely. And, you know, I don't have to worry for the rest of my life. I mean, I have a great pension. I have a great income, plus my judging income, and I still am afforded my passion with the dogs. So it really was an internal struggle, and I guess it still is. But
yeah, I was actually thinking that about, you know, so many professional handlers at the moment who are, you know, this pandemic is obviously affecting them in a great way. So, you know, to have that second stream of income or to do something else that, you know, to fall back on would definitely be something to consider. What makes you happy?
My health, my friends, my dogs, traveling. I absolutely, and I say this often on Facebook, you've seen it. I love my family, but they all think I'm crazy because of the passion for the dogs. They really do. They were all such successful business people and it wasn't that I wasn't successful at work, but I think I've forgotten more about dogs than I'll ever know about the work that I did. And the family that, your friends that have become family, that makes me more happy than anything.
Agreed. And what makes you sad?
When people don't have the passion and the drive that we all do. I think that you find, well, just you and I even, like, you find people that are so like-minded and you like instantly. Andrew Burt, I could go on and on and on. You travel all over the world, and sometimes you instantly connect with someone and they're your family. And it's because they share that passion.
Yeah. Skydiving or a shark cage?
Oh, well, I've done both. So
really?
Yes. And what's interesting, little known fact, is I wanted to be a marine biologist, but so I absolutely love the idea of anything with marine biology. The skydiving was something, and I listened to you interview Andrew. I agree with him. It was a one-time thing. I did it as a tandem jump, and we had double parachutes, and I loved it. But when I was hitting the ground, when we literally were on the ground, I thought, well, I've done that. That's enough. But I think the shark,
Oops, hang on, we've lost you.
Ocean at Grandeur at the beautiful grounds in Long Island. And there's, are you there?
So yeah, I lost it. Tell me about the shark thing.
So
again,
I was just going to say, every summer I go to Grandeur down in Long Island, and I still do it every year with Michael and with Mrs. Reckler, with Evelyn Reckler. And during that time of the summer all the time, there's on National Geographic Channel, there's the shark TV shows. So I'm always struggling with the fact that I want to see my family and I want to get out and enjoy the pool and that, but I'm fascinated with all the shark dives. So definitely sharks.
Okay, excellent. And what's the thing you're most afraid of?
Snakes.
Oh, okay.
Terrified.
Now, I'm going to ask you, the question actually says any nicknames, but we know you have a nickname already. So can you tell us how Trixie Breen came about?
So my first Airedale bitch that was the foundation bitch, her name was Trixie. And I owned my dogs with the Greens, with Peter Green and Andrew Green. So we combined Bruce and Green. And what happened was I just wanted twofold. I wanted to make sure that any of the criminals that I had put in jail couldn't find me so readily on social media. And I also love it too because it takes most people one step before they friend request me before I'm judging somewhere. They have to find out who I am before they friend request me.
Well, for the longest time, I thought your name was Trixie Bree.
Right. Well, the thing is I answer to it now, which is crazy. Growing up, my nickname was always Missy, and
Okay.
I'll still answer to that too. It's funny.
And that's your family or friends that gave you Missy?
Both. It ended up being my friends that started calling me that, but my family still all calls me Missy.
Okay. Always late or always on time?
Time.
Okay.
I have no interest at all. I've actually stopped dating people in the past if they didn't respect my time.
Whoa, I'm loving this. 3 people dead or alive that you'd want to be stuck with on a desert island.
Wow. Definitely not Michael.
Why? Why not him? I thought that'd be the obvious yes.
He and I adore each other, but in short spurts, and we know that. I absolutely adore him. But to have Michael stuck on a desert island, I would be stuck with him anywhere, but not a desert island. That's funny. Dead, for sure, Nigel Aubrey-Jones and Bill Taylor for the entertainment factor. And then I would need somebody somebody that would be a survival mode, like a Steve Irwin or someone like that could keep us away from the snakes and make sure that whatever it was we were eating, we weren't going to die from. Yeah.
And to build you a nice, luxurious place to stay and all that.
The 5-star. Well, the 5-star resort's there already, is it not? Is that not part of the scenario? No, and scene. No, I don't even, we're done. I'm not even going to answer that question then.
There you go. How do you like your steak cooked?
Oh, you're not going to like this. Medium well.
Medium well.
I know, it's disgusting, but I cannot take any blood. I will eat raw, I will eat sushi forever, which is my favorite food, but I can't take anything that resembles that it was once had a pulse. I can't do it.
Okay. Obviously, we've talked about the fact that you've been mentored by some, pretty incredible people in you becoming successful as a breeder, as an exhibitor, as a judge. Do you think it happens enough in this day and age?
No.
Why do you think it doesn't happen enough?
You know what's interesting, and we just had this recently. There's a young judge in Canada, for example, who I think is a phenomenal judge, potentially phenomenal. And I watched not only this person, but other people freaking out over this pandemic because it's putting them behind on this schedule that they have for themselves. And I would probably guess that these people legitimately have been in dogs maybe 12 years at best. And what I find really infuriating in it, and I'm not just going to sugarcoat it, it infuriates me, is when you see people that are matriarchs in the breed or experts in what they do, that they're not tapped into by people that don't appreciate it because they're on their own agenda to get to where they feel they need to be. And it's very disheartening. I grew up with people that were just people. They were not in people in positions of authority back then. They were not people of greatness. They were dedicated, hard-working people who had great dog sense. Now they happen to be someone.
Right.
And so it's interesting when you see younger people that feel entitled, or the thing I think upsets me the most is when they walk up to these icons with a sense of familiarity and the fact that they're peers. And those people standing in front of them have forgotten more about dogs than they will ever know. And I find that really tragic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yet there's some amazing young people too, who I think are going to be such value to the dog community. I think it's a real balance.
Correct. What's Pam's rule of thumb about friends showing dogs to you? How close is too close that would make you unhappy?
That's another interesting point. I think because I've been in dogs my entire life, that I know everyone. People that know me well, and they've suffered it actually, know that once I walk through that ring, I am no one's friend. And I'm very adamant about that. I will never compromise myself or them. I've actually had friends, not through their own accord, but through co-owners, walk dogs in under me, and I knew the dog right away. And I've actually gone and called a show superintendent and asked them to verify an ownership on a dog, and they didn't even know how to handle it. And I said, I'm telling you, you don't have to tell me that I know this dog is owned by so-and-so, and it's a conflict of interest. And I excused the person. What I find fascinating with that is, just last summer, Michael Canaliso was judging Best in Show at one of the biggest shows in Canada. And I won the group with my young Airedale bitch under a terrier breeder specialist.
Okay.
And I walked up to the ring. And it was in Best in Show. And I'm telling you, I have never been so surprised. People actually thought that I was going to stay in the ring.
Wow.
And I walked up, just very, not dissimilar, obviously on a very different scale, but not dissimilar to when Peter Green excused Ernesto Lara in the terrier group. Much bigger scale. But as we walked, Michael Canaliso walked down the line, my Airedale bitch jumped at him, so excited to see him. I wasn't ready for that, but I took a victory lap, an honor lap, and when I did the lap, the place erupted. And I was really proud of that, because as Michael walked down the line, he walked up to me and shook my hand, and he said, "Madam, due to our obvious conflict, you will be excused." So I did the lap and I walked out. But I was more surprised at the people that didn't understand why I should have.
Wow.
And I find that a real moral dilemma, because and I've got to say, I'm really proud of my friends, because I've never, except for the one time where it was a novice co-owner on that dog with somebody that I've grown up with, I've never once been put in a bad position.
Okay.
And I think it's the same as all of us, and I'm sure you experienced that. If you know these people, you need to walk through that ring gate knowing that your relationship is not close to be the appearance of an impropriety, and you never put your friends in that position.
Do you think it happens enough that people do victory laps and go out, or as you said, are people just expecting, well, it's just a normal thing to do?
I think both. I think it depends on the character of the people involved, because I've got to tell you, I've been, not in Canada, but I've watched people in shows that I know are intimately connected, and yet they're standing in the ring, and that horrifies me.
Yeah. The person I blame for this is Andrew Brace, because he always says you should be able to, your grandmother should be able to show under you, and you should place her where she deserves to. But people misunderstood that as it's okay for your grandma to show under you.
Right? We'll blame Andrew for a lot of things. God, I adore that man.
Let's blame him. It's easier. Who has it easier, men or women?
In what?
In life.
And now that's an interesting perspective, because of the male-dominated job that I had, I would find that would be men. I think in general, if you stereotype in society, it would be men. But I've been fortunate enough, including my grandmother and the strong women that raised me both in dogs and in life, that I feel it's very much equal.
Okay. Gold or silver?
Silver.
Silver or diamonds?
Silver.
Ooh, okay. Interesting. Are you a dancer or a singer?
Both. Depends how much alcohol I've had.
That sounds like me. Beach house or mountain cabin?
Beach house.
Okay. And what's your biggest pet peeve with exhibitors whilst you're judging?
What people that dare to walk in my ring, I'm very easygoing, but I am offended on every front when they walk in with a dog that's dirty and a dog not in condition. And I'm nuts, like I'm the first one to admit it. I am so OCD about my dogs, and I'm so driven to make sure that there's every hair in place, but it makes me insane when people don't even appreciate their dogs and respect themselves and their dogs enough.
And what about your biggest pet peeve as an exhibitor when you're showing?
That because I'm a judge, that I'm winning. When it's 3 times harder to be put on a level playing field because you watch, and like I said, I try so hard to not put people in a position, but I really do believe because you're a judge, you've got to walk in with dogs that are twice as good in 3 times better condition to be considered.
Absolutely.
And yet people think it's this secret society where it's a given, right?
It isn't a secret society, really?
I don't have the card. Do you have the card?
No, they missed me. Milk chocolate or dark chocolate?
In men or in confectionery?
In confectionery. This is a family show.
In confectionery, I will choose dark chocolate.
Okay. And in men?
Both.
Okay. I might have to edit that bit out anyway. What do you like on your pancakes? Maple syrup or honey?
Honey.
Oh, again, you surprised me. I thought you'd be...
You thought the Canadian was going to pick maple syrup.
Absolutely. That's what you guys do.
It gives me a stomach ache.
Oh, okay. I love maple syrup.
I'll send you some.
Oh, I've got plenty, seriously, and my waistline can do without it. Do you think kennel clubs in general, or let's talk about your kennel club if you want to, do enough to support and promote pedigree dogs?
No.
Is it effective?
No. We have a running issue right now, and I think, I'm going to preface it with, I think the Canadian Kennel Club, for some things, does an amazing job. But we have had a defunct computer system with Canadian Kennel Club for years. And I think the problem's twofold. One, they forget that the membership is all, it's supported by the membership, the Canadian Kennel Club, and its dog breeders. But the other thing that I find, and I served 3 terms with the discipline committee in the Canadian Kennel Club. And so the internal workings became very familiar to me. And I find it really frustrating when because I really do believe that a lot of these key positions with the Canadian Kennel Club, save and except the board, which are obviously all dog people. But I think from the business aspect of it with the Canadian Kennel Club, that they should really try to hire people from within. So, and you know that as well as anybody with the kennel clubs around the world. There are people within our dog community that are lawyers, that are business people of any sense, that are IT specialists, whatever. It makes no sense to me that we don't hire them. Because not only do they understand it from the perspective of what we need, but they understand it from a business perspective.
So you would agree with me when I say that kennel clubs should be run like a business?
Absolutely.
Okay. So meaning we choose the best people for the job.
Right. And like as I said, sorry?
No, go ahead.
No, I just missed what you said.
No, I said despite sometimes the so-called obvious conflicts of interest that people might expect because they're dog people, because they're involved, that it's wrong to get them involved. Sometimes they are the right people because they understand it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, what could they do more effectively besides hiring people from within the pool, do you think?
Well, I think not town hall meetings like we have on CNN, but certainly something where they appease the members and give some sense that they're listening to what the concerns are, both positive experience and negative.
Okay. Can you share 2 things with us on your bucket list?
To stay alive and cancer-free in remission. Okay. And this will not happen, but to breed a Montgomery Best in Show winner.
Oh, you never know. You never know. keep staying positive. It may just happen. Tim Hortons or Starbucks?
You've done your research. Starbucks.
Oh, Starbucks?
Absolutely.
Coffee or tea?
Both. I alternate a lot. I love green tea, especially from Starbucks. And Starbucks has a blend of coffee called True North that's strictly Canadian. And I ship it to people all over the place because it's a soft breakfast blend, but it is phenomenal. I actually named a dog True North because of it.
Okay. And how do you have your coffee?
Black.
Okay.
Do you want me to say like my men? No. Dark.
Stop. Family show, remember. Okay. Online dog shows, yes or no?
That's an interesting dynamic. I would have been a hard no before the pandemic. I recently did a charity event for Pure Dog Talk, and I absolutely loved it. I've been just recently assisting Show Scene Magazine in getting judges for another charity event. And there's another charity event that we will see shortly that I can't really talk about yet, but it's involved with a heart organization, and I'm agreeing to judge for them, as well as there's another young junior handler from Facebook that's organized an event, and I've agreed to judge for them as well. And I think a lot of us have agreed, and it's to give back. Normally, it would be a hard no.
Okay.
But for right now, and I was shocked, I got to tell you, at the drive and the passion and the pure joy of these people that did their 1-minute video. Yeah. And they were all dressed up and their dogs looked beautiful. And I got to tell you, I will forever find this amusing because I cannot count how many people over my lifetime have said to me, well, if you just saw Fufu in the backyard, you'd know he was beautiful. But there wasn't one dog in their backyard that I didn't think owned up to that.
Okay, interesting.
And I love that.
Okay.
And the other thing, and it had me in tears, there was a junior handler who had her mother drive her to a parking lot so her dog could be seen on level pavement. And the one thing that really got me, being a cancer survivor, was, and it really did affect me, was a woman who clearly is in the middle of treatment, dressing up and showing up and having fun with her dog. And that was like amazing to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, online dog shows have amazed me how they've, this time they've gone beyond just photographs, it's videos. It's incredible. It's incredible.
Well, and look what they're doing for education. I mean, it's incredible now. And look what you're doing, these interviews and, an interview with Andrew Brace and things like that. Like learning about the dog community and staying connected, I think it's invaluable.
Yeah, I agree. Do you have a favorite saying or a motto?
A lot that I can't mention here. But I think the biggest one since I've been sick is life is good.
Okay, excellent. And last question. What is one sentence you would like to see in your obituary about your time in the dog world, or as you, or you as a dog person?
That she loved her dogs. And I think that she was fair and kind.
Excellent. I'd second that. All right, Pam, thank you so much. I've had so much fun. We could go on talking for another hour or two.
It was a pleasure, my brother.
We might have to do episode 2, but anyway, thank you so much. I've had so much fun. Everyone, again, really appreciate your time, and thank you so much.
Thank you for thinking of me. I really enjoyed it.
Excellent. See you on the other side.
Cheers.
God bless. Bye-bye.
Thank you.